Hello, everyone. This is Manuela, teacher of qualification expertise. Great pleasure to talk to you. In this video, I will talk briefly about an amazing cloud computing platform being one of the fastest growing and the second largest in the market. Right now, I'm talking about Microsoft Azure. I'm talking about the platform known as Azure from Microsoft. Going over what we're going to see in this video, first of all I'm going to tell you about why you should be interested in cloud computing. I'm going to explain to you what exactly cloud computing is. I'm going to tell you about what Microsoft Azure is, what its services are, and who Azure users are. Right now, I'm going to start with why you should be interested in cloud computing. Let me start with an example. Let's suppose you have an idea for a revolutionary project or service. Your intention is that the user will have a great relationship with the service you are providing and that it will also be highly profitable. Now, for your application to be successful, you have to release it on the internet. People need to use it, they need to spread the word that it really works, and then your app will become truly famous. These are many components. And therein lies the problem. There are two major drawbacks to this approach. The initial setup is very expensive and risky, which means that this requires a huge amount of upfront capital to ensure that your app works properly. And the disadvantage is that if your app doesn't become famous, or if it doesn't return as much as you expect, you probably won't get a return on the capital you invested. This means that your project is a huge risk. If it becomes famous, your number of users will increase, which means that you will have to buy more servers and storage systems to keep up with your demand. All this is not easy to solve, but all these problems can be solved with the help of cloud computing. Now that you know why you should be interested in cloud computing, let's get into the details of what exactly cloud computing is. Cloud computing is basically a platform that gives you access to a number of computing resources, and this is made possible with the help of the internet. As a user, all you need to do is go to a cloud service provider through your laptop or your computer via the internet, and of course, connect. Now let's dig a little deeper. Basically, these cloud service providers actually have massive data centers. In these data centers, what you have are hundreds of servers. Also included are storage systems and mainly various critical components of the organizations. Therefore, these are very secure locations. Where a large amount of data is stored, they are called data centers. And it is in these data centers that users actually log on to collect their data or use it. So, in effect, users can access any service based on their needs. Now, as I said, there are a number of services that the user can use. For all of these, there are services, and more importantly, almost all cloud service providers. There are options where users only pay for the services they use, so there is no upfront charge, while other companies charge many reals before you even use the services. You will only pay for the amount of time you are using these services. First of all, for the machine learning and the analysis of this data. Basically, there are services that analyze your data and tell you how you can work with this data better than, for example, data storage and backup media content. Did you know that the shows you watch on Netflix are actually all in the cloud? So you are connected to the internet, browse Netflix, and have access to the videos. These services are only possible with the help of cloud service providers. There is the creation of test applications, the automation of software delivery that is a component in DevOps, and the hosting of blogs and applications. So we can ask you now, what is Azure? What is the big cloud service provider? Azure is a cloud computing platform provided by Microsoft and is basically an online portal through which you can access and manage resources and services. The resources and services are nothing but storing your data, and you can transform the data using the services that Microsoft provides. Again, all you need is the internet and to be able to connect to the Azure portal. Then you will have access to all the resources and their services. Which means, as I said before, that you will only need to pay for the services you use through Azure. And one of their biggest selling points is that 80% of Fortune 500 companies use Azure services, which means that most of the largest companies in the world actually recommend using Azure. In addition, Azure supports a wide variety of programming languages, to C, C++, JavaScript, Java, and more. Another very strong argument for you to choose Azure is the amount of data centers that Microsoft has around the world. It is very important for a cloud service provider to have many data centers around the world, as this means that they can deliver their services to a wider audience. Azure currently has 42 centers, which is more than any cloud service provider has at the moment. It expects to have 12 more centers in a short period of time, which means that it will be closer and closer to you. The total number of regions it covers comes to 54. Now it is time to talk a bit more about Azure services. Azure services have 18 categories and more than 200 services, so clearly I cannot go through them all. Briefly speaking, you have services that cover compute and machine learning, integration, management tools, identity, DevOps, web, and more. You're going to have a hard time trying to find a domain that Azure doesn't cover. And if it doesn't cover it now, you can be sure they are working on it as you watch this video. Azure is the first virtual machine cloud computing services. With this service, what you get to do is create a virtual machine of either Linux or Windows operating system. This machine is easily configurable. You can add RAM, you can decrease RAM, you can add storage, remove it. All this is possible in a matter of seconds. Now I will tell you about the second service, which is the cloud computer service. With this, you can create an application inside the cloud, and all the work after you deploy it is Microsoft's responsibility to take care that it works. Through Azure, you can provision the application, load balance it, ensure that the application is running smoothly, and all the other things are taken care of by Azure. Next, I'll tell you about building the service. Once the service is contracted, the process of developing a microservice is greatly simplified. You may be wondering what exactly a microservice is. A microservice is basically an application that consists of other smaller applications coupled together. Next are the functions. With functions you can create applications in any programming language you want. Another very important part is that you don't have to worry about any hardware components. You don't have to worry about what framework you need or how much storage you need. All that is handled by Azure. All you need is to provide the code to Azure and it will run it, and you don't have to worry about anything else. Let's talk about some networking services. First, we have the Azure CDN, or the Content Delivery Network. Now the Azure CDN service is basically for web content delivery. All users, now, with high bandwidth, can have data transferred or can be delivered to anyone around the world. Azure is actually a network of servers placed in strategic positions around the world so that customers can get the data as fast as possible. On top of all this, we also have the Express route. With Express route, you can actually connect your local network to the Microsoft Cloud or any of the services you want through a private connection. So the only communication that happens is between your local network and the service you want. From this point on, you have a virtual network. With a virtual network you can have any of the Azure services communicating securely and privately. Next you have the Azure DNS. So Azure DNS is a hosting service that allows you to host your DNS domains or domain name system on Azure. So you can host your application using Azure DNS. Now, for storage services, first we have disk storage. With this storage, you get a cost-effective storage. You still have the option to choose solid-state drives to go with your virtual machines based on your needs. Next, you have blob storage. This is really optimized to ensure that they can store large amounts of unstructured data that can include text data or even binary data. Just when you think you're done, you still have file storage, which is managed file storage and can be accessible through the SMB protocol or the message block protocol of the server. And finally, you have queue storage. That's right, queue storage. With queue storage, you can provide durable, queued messages for an extremely large workload, and the most important part is that they can be accessed from anywhere in the world. You can still create virtual machines, as I mentioned earlier. With the Azure service, this means virtual machines of any size or shape you want. You can integrate in-sync features, you can collect virtually infinite data and store arrays, for example. You'll get instant access to how the data works, what the current data looks like, how you can improve it. All this is possible with these services and their virtual hard disks, which is an extension of virtual machines where these services are able to provide a large amount of storage where data can be stored. Let me now give you a brief summary of everything that we have seen. In this video, I told you about why you should be interested in cloud computing. What exactly is cloud computing? What Azure is? Some of the services that Azure offers and how you can use them. Everything I've told you and shown you is yours, and with that I come to the end of another video, not wanting to fail to say that this subject is not over. I am just starting. I hope you found this video informative and useful. Thank you for watching it to the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click on the suggested cards above. Best regards, Manuela, teacher of qualification expertise.